And good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Really appreciate you guys joining us today as we sit down with eFolder Chief Executive Officer Matt Nachtrab for a review of maybe a touch on 2017 and certainly a look forward into 2018 for all the exciting things that we here at eFolder have planned for the year. And yeah, a lot of stuff to sit down and talk about with Matt. So a few housekeeping items, just so everyone knows, we are recording this session and it will be sent out to everyone after the call, along with the information that we may be touching on. I wanted to also let you know that this will be put up on YouTube later on. So if you need to get back to it in a very easy fashion, you can find it on the eFolder YouTube channel. We will get right into the program, I think. So Matt, welcome. Appreciate you sitting down with us today. We are going to be talking about a few things here, including the State of the Union, kind of what's going on as we've entered 2018, kind of what's been on your mind for the last couple of weeks. Yeah. Talk about the suite of solutions and kind of what we have planned through this year. Some information on the partner experience. I know you've been bringing a lot of people onto the team to really enhance what we're doing with our partners, and maybe touch on that a little bit. And then a new program that we're really excited about here at eFolder. So. And again, folks on the phone, certainly this is interactive. We'll be doing Q&A at the end, but if you have questions that pop up throughout, please just use the question bar in your GoToWebinar question pane. So really appreciate it. Matt, let's just jump right in. In regards to the current State of the Union here at eFolder, maybe talk to us a little bit. This is the first time that we've sat down in this forum since you've really joined the company, especially since you became Chief Executive Officer back in July. Can you maybe tell the audience a little bit about maybe what brought you to eFolder, what got you excited about this opportunity, and now that you have the reins as CEO, maybe where are you wanting to take us?
Yeah, so when I was making a career change from I started LabTech Software, became the COO and president of ConnectWise, and then once that LabTech business fully merged in with ConnectWise, I decided that I was going to go and try to do something else. And so I looked around the industry. A lot of companies were really large and established, and others didn't have products I could get excited about. And eFolder kind of hit that sweet spot where I took a look at all the different technologies. I have a technical background. And my first job out of school was a DBA, database administrator.
And in college, you studied the technical side of life,
engineering, computer science. And so I always really I like product. I really like digging in and understanding the products. And so I installed Anchor and played around with it. I checked out a lot of the other file sync and share solutions as well ahead of time over the years. And obviously through LabTech, I had experience with a number of different backup solutions as well. And so I started with the technology, and I was like, wow, this suite of solutions that eFolder and K1 Capital have brought together under the eFolder brand are really strong. And so that's where I started. And then I ended up reaching out to Kevin Hoffman, who I knew was very technically oriented, and just started discussions with him and the board about maybe I can come in and, help from a go-to-market and, give input where I can on product, but then let Kevin really focus on technology and solving the very difficult challenges that we have with the suite of solutions, in the types of very deeply technical products that we have. And so that's really what it was. Is the company, I think it was the right size. The products are great, and there's a lot of potential in the market to, compete with Datto and some of the other, bigger players in the space.
Absolutely. So question,
and obviously, I wanted to stay in the MSP space, and so that was another key thing. And so I think eFolder had the most promise for growth and the strongest products. That's why I decided to come on this team.
Excellent. Now you started your own MSP back in Toledo, Ohio.
Yeah.
You started Nemesis from an RMM perspective. You worked with ConnectWise.
Nemesis was the MSP.
Oh, I'm sorry, LabTech. So you started LabTech. You worked at ConnectWise. So you've been in kind of a lot of different avenues of the MSP landscape. Now, was there anything about data protection that kind of gives you something a little different?
So at Nemesis, and I think most MSPs think the same thing. What keeps you up at night? It's data protection. It's that if there's a system failure or some sort of virus that impacts the access to data, that we can get back up and running. And so while I thought LabTech and ConnectWise were interesting, they weren't quite as deeply down into the technical stack that's really important to MSPs. And so that the mission critical nature of backup and the level of importance that has for MSPs was really another area that attracted me to it. About 25% of revenue, between 20 and 25% of revenue at MSPs comes from data backup. Now people are blending their service offering to where that's not as easily separated out. But before that started to really blend, it was 20 to 25% of revenue. So not only is it something that is very, very important for MSPs, it's significant from a revenue standpoint.
Gotcha. And maybe we can talk about that a little bit when we get into the solutions, our suite of solutions here in a little bit. So without taking too much thunder about what we'll talk about here in a few minutes, but maybe what's kind of been top of mind for the most part, for the first part of 2018?
So if you rewind a couple years at eFolder, eFolder was more of a platform play to where they layered their cloud backup solutions on top of other IP. And over the last few years, eFolder has made a very strategic shift to owning the entire stack for a number of reasons. One is that you actually can control it. If you have the backup agent and you've written the IP there all the way through the recovery environment in the cloud, when a partner has issues, we can solve it. And so we can actually mold it. The other reason is more from a business standpoint. Being a SaaS company, the valuations are higher.
Yep.
And so when outside investors are looking at the business, they value it higher if it's on your own IP. And the big shift that eFolder has been going through over the years is shifting away from its revenue away from being on top of other people's by OEMing and reselling other people's technology to eFolder IP. And so it's been an interesting shift within the business to see that happen. 2 years ago, it was actually 12 months ago, last November, when we look at the close for that month, we were 60% platform or reselling other people's technology, 40% IP. And then as of last month, we're 60% IP, 40% platform, which is a difficult shift to go through. And so that's been something that I've been really looking at. And if we look at overall, the IP solutions have grown by 120% over the last 2 years. Replicabit, I'll talk a little bit later, but Replicabit's had 2,000% growth over a 2-year period. So that's been the real explosion and really trying to figure out how do we continue that growth and deliver amazing service to our partners. And I have experience with that with LabTech because LabTech blew up in a similar way that Replicabit's currently doing. And so keeping on top of service, keeping on top of the product to help it scale is really one of the main focuses that I have going in 2018.
Excellent. We'll definitely be coming back to that because we'll definitely want to dive down a little bit deeper on customer or partner experience and what we're putting in place to help support that. One of the things I know that on a lot of people's minds, we went through a merger with Axient, and it's certainly now part of our suite of solutions, and really excited to have this kind of new BDR technology kind of available to us. Can you give us a little insight as to kind of how the integration process is working with our friends at Axient?
So Axient is another product that's just amazing. They have 2 products, the BRC and a product called Fusion. Fusion primarily backs up VMware, is what it's targeted at.
And I'm sorry, BRC is Business Recovery Cloud.
Business Recovery Cloud. And so BRC is similar to Replicabit in that it mainly focuses on backing up physical servers up to the cloud. And so, the interesting thing if I look at the past, Andy Benzinger is the person that started Replicabit and created the original design of a BDR to begin with, way back in Zenith Infotech days. And so he's really the brainchild behind Replicabit. And the way he always looked at it is I need to make sure my backups are solid. I need to make sure that my maintenance of keeping backup chains or lack thereof, so that we don't have to reseed, or when we recover, we see that we don't have a valid chain. And he wanted to focus on the local recovery environment because 99.9% of recoveries that are in a data outage or something, come local. It's not like a site-wide disaster. Whereas Justin Moore, who was the founder of Axient, and obsessed about building those products over well over a decade, was really about the cloud recovery experience.
Okay.
And so that was one of the main drivers, not only just the fact that Axient was very successful in the marketplace, and Replicate is really starting to be very successful in the marketplace. So combining those partner bases is important, but really the product set really fits well together.
Very nice. And so obviously there's a lot that goes into bringing two very complex solutions together in that fashion. Is there anything that our partners and prospects may be able to look forward to in this year, or maybe as we enter 2019?
Yeah, I'd say, and we can talk about this a little bit in the Replicate section, but yeah, the idea is in the second half of 2018, we'll start to see some features and the platform really come together as one.
Awesome. Well, then we'll touch on that here in just a few minutes then. Fantastic. And I think it's a very nice transition, actually. We can just kind of start talking about, the channel's most powerful suite of data protection solutions that we're very happy to take claim on that. You mentioned the fact that eFolder had gone through some very, significant and strategic acquisitions over the last few years to put this together, right? We started with, you mentioned Kevin Hoffman, who had been CEO. You guys have been working together, who's now in charge of technology as Chief Technology Officer. I think he's bringing a lot of vision and a lot of capabilities to the entire suite. So maybe as we just kind of think about this from 2018, do you mind talking us through, since we were talking about Replicate, maybe touch on maybe what 2018 has in store for Replicate?
Yeah, so Replicate, as I mentioned, is the user base and the revenue has scaled about 2,000% the last 2 years, and so with that, it starts to really show the areas of the product that need help, the areas of the product that support requests or questions are coming in. And so really in the first half of 2018, we're focused on basically doing releases in the areas that our partners are feeling pain, or they're actually doing support requests around, and fixing or enhancing them to avoid the question to begin with. So either fully automating the area of the software that's causing a partner to call in and ask questions, or fixing a bug that might be causing issue, or just making the UI more just easier to use, so that there's not a question of what to do.
Awesome.
And so that's what we'll be really focusing on for the first half. One of the things that has come out recently is we had a really good stabilization to the hardware. We had a patch that was really focused on stabilizing the hardware that we deploy as Replicate appliances, our proprietary solution.
Yeah, I was going to mention, so when you mentioned our hardware, right, while Replicate is actually hardware agnostic, it can work, the software works anywhere. We actually are providing 2 different flavors of appliances to support the on-site needs, right? So we're having 3 or 4 SSD appliances going down to the Nano, all the way up to some fairly large storage capacities. And then we have a hybrid version of those for 3 of them. So just to let everyone know that from a BDR aspect, we've got kind of the Ferraris and the Cadillacs on the appliance
so the idea of our hardware lineup is really to make it so that you can use Replicate in as many places as possible. So you might have a small customer that doesn't have a very high SLA. The Nano works great there, but then you got the Pro and the Rack versions are for your larger customers with larger space requirements. And then on top of that is that you can bring your own BDR. And so if there's even a lower end environment, you want like a desktop. At Nemesis, actually, we use retired desktops as the BDRs at some of the small businesses that we support.
Very cool.
It really fits, all the different varieties of customers that you might have as an MSP.
Okay. So we're addressing the questions that come in to try to head off the questions with our support group before. So working on that from the product. We're working on some patches for the hardware. Anything else?
Yeah. And so the thing that's coming out next, and it's the 2018.1. I don't know if that's the marketing name that we're going to give it, but that one is pretty slick. We've got with Replicate, one of the big things, the big value props of it that Andy thought of from the beginning was chain-free backups. And really what that means is that all recovery points are independent, and you don't need to reseed as often. But there's a few instances where you do need to take a second backup. For example, if the volume size changes, it has a need for reseed. And one of the R&D team came up with a way to basically dedupe at the appliance. And so it's another barrier that we removed of a need to reseed, that even if you do have to take a full backup of a device, the appliance automatically dedupes.
Nice.
And it will only send the changes from the last image up to the cloud. And so one of the issues that we've had that's come up with questions from partners is the seeding process. So getting that initial image up, or God forbid that you need to reseed and then you need to get a whole nother image up. This dedupe really significantly optimizes the both the storage space required on an appliance when multiple folds happen to be needed on that appliance, but also makes it so that the transfer of the data is drastically minimized on any reseeding after that first successful image.
Excellent, excellent.
So that's a really slick feature.
We did have one question come in about the appliances, and wondering if there's any plans for a Windows-based appliance.
No, there's not. So the platform is built on Linux, and so you could do a Windows and then do a hypervisor layer, and virtualize your appliance in Linux. But no, there's no plan for the appliance architecture to be Windows.
Okay, very cool.
A lot of that's just cost.
Yep.
And the whole architecture is built around it being on Linux, but then you also don't have the Microsoft license fees when you have it based on Linux. It allows us to keep our prices down.
Excellent. Is there anything else on Replibit we should talk about, or?
Yeah, no. I mean, when we look at the second half, this is where you started to talk about how we're bringing Axient and eFolder together. We're really focused on the Axient BRC solution and bringing that together with Replibit. And so Axient BRC has a great global management portal that's more powerful than the Replibit portal. Also has more robust recovery, faster and more robust recovery up in the cloud. And so there are going to end up being two versions of Replibit. There's going to be the basic and then the advanced, and it will be charged different. So the advanced will have a little bit of an increased cost to it. And the idea is that's going to have all the features that we'll need to really rapidly recover, and you can recover it yourself in the cloud. And so that's what the second half. So first half is really focused on with the scale of growing by 2,000% in a couple of years. Let's get the product more scalable for both the MSP and for eFolder as a business. Okay. And that also includes service qualities, because if we have things that are causing questions, it's better to not have asked the question than to have to wait on hold for our support people. The second half is going to be focused more on that cloud recovery. So
we have one of our folks has chimed in and says we have clients who want to back up Linux. Is that on the roadmap?
I don't know specifically where it is. We talk about it. It's only about 3 to 5% of the market need, and so it ends up being a little bit of give or take. I know that as an MSP, you want to standardize your backup offering, and I know that that's a need. And so I don't know if it's been specifically put anywhere on a roadmap, but it's something that we're aware of, that we do get requests on. Okay,
very cool. So at least it's already on the radar, and something we'll be addressing is maybe that need.
And some of the things we will be looking at host-based backup of hypervisors, so Hyper-V and VMware, and so at that point it almost automatically allows for Linux backup, because if you're backing up the host, you back up all the different guests that are running on it. But we'll consider that well into the future, though.
Okay, excellent. Let's maybe shift a little to the left for those looking at the slides with us, and talk file sync and share a little bit. Although, every time I say file sync and share with Anchor, I feel like I'm just doing a disservice to our solution. It's just so much more. It's just so much more. I mean, there's so many security aspects of it, and so many enabling aspects that our MSPs can really be in front of their clients almost on a nonstop basis with some of the brandable aspects of the solution. But it is file sync and share at its root and foundation. And
what I like is it's a cloud file system. It's like a file server, but it's cloud enabled, and you can access it anywhere. It's for different end customers, it's a replacement of your file serving.
Yeah, so and that's actually, I think, one of the
shares, and there's a lot of great features, and that's really Anchor is very stable. It's been around a while. It's a great product that really can help an MSP differentiate what they offer to their customers.
Yep. And one of the things you mentioned, the file server enablement, one of the things we're hearing from partners a lot these days is how Anchor takes a component of the network in that file server, takes it out and puts in something that's providing monthly revenue in its place. So I think that from the solution stack and standardizing, as you mentioned earlier, our file sync and share with Anchor really fits in nicely in a few different ways, and I think that file server is a big piece of that.
Yeah.
What's on the plate for 2018 as it relates to Anchor?
So while Anchor hasn't quite grown as fast as Replit, it has grown very rapidly as well, and so we are focusing on scale in a similar way. So way I look at when I came in to eFolder is there's a couple foundational things that we need to do. We needed to work on the way we prioritize requests from partners, and we also needed to work on the way we do releases. And so there's some blocking and tackling that people that aren't from the software space wouldn't know a lot about, but having a continuous release process, having a really good automated quality assurance process, so that instead of having people manually test, we can automatically run test cases. So across all the different dev teams, we've really been focusing on the release process and the testing process and automation. So a lot of time's been spent on that. On top of that, you have the priority of issues and what we actually work on. And so similar to Replit, we've been prioritizing that. We've been focusing the last couple quarters on making the data center more robust, adding redundancy in areas that weren't as scaled out as I would have liked. And then again, focusing on areas where the support tickets are coming in to help the business be more scalable, which I say it makes the product a better user experience.
Absolutely.
If we can avoid it. The big feature within Anchor that we're focused on is granular security.
It's funny you mentioned we've had a couple of questions come in on that level, so I think we've got some folks interested in where this is going.
And while I said I was a database administrator, I've never been a file system administrator, so it took partners a number of times to really get me to understand why they need granular permission and what it's about. And so in Q1, we will have a release of the first enhancements that have granular file permissions. So that's big. And then the other thing that we're going to be, rolling in is the next generation sync client, which, right now when we sync the whole files down to the computer, to the individual users.
Mm-hmm.
And that's two things. Is one, from a security standpoint, the more places the file is, the more risk you have of security. And so another problem of syncing all those files locally is just some desktops, laptops don't have a ton of space. And so if you don't want it available offline, we're going to be adding basically a virtual version of Anchor to where it'll look like it's in the directory structure, but it's not really on that computer. It will stream as the user clicks on it. And so, Dropbox has the concept of Smart Sync, and OneDrive recently did something, I think it's called Files on Demand.
Okay.
And so we'll be rolling a feature similar. I've seen the prototype of it. You can actually play a movie over this.
Excellent.
And so that's another feature that we'll be adding this year. I don't know exactly the timing on that one, but we've got the proof of concept. I've seen it at work.
That's awesome. I mean, especially if it's working already in the fashion with video and that type of data and usage and whatnot, it seems like it's heading in the right direction.
Yeah. The other thing that we're going to see Q1, Q2 is the new UI UX of the agent that the users see when they work in Anchor.
Very nice. And I think that should be a nice, more smoother, a little bit more advanced.
Yeah, more modern.
More modern feel. Very nice.
And there's some enhancements in it.
Okay. And just to circle back, just to make sure that everyone's on the same page. So you mentioned the first of the kind of file level permissions and the releases around that will be here in the near future. But as we've got a lot of plans, I think, with specific file level permissions, and these may come across in a couple of different releases as we go through the year.
Yeah, that's the plan.
Okay, excellent.
Hit the main things that people are asking for first.
Okay.
I wish I could get deeper on that, but I don't really know.
No, I completely understand. I would like to pretend I knew, but I don't either. So we'll just move on. And I think maybe a good time to shift to cloud backup. And one of the products I think that maybe doesn't get quite the spotlight that Anchor and Replit, of course, I see now, but Cloud Finder.
Yeah.
And we're seeing a lot of our MSPs out there working with Office 365, and we feel like we've got a pretty slick solution to help complement what they're already selling and maybe provide them some ability. So can you tell us a little bit about Cloud Finder and maybe what's in store?
And so Cloud Finder, if you think about the name of Cloud Finder, why do they call a backup product Cloud Finder? The reason it was originally named Cloud Finder is because a big part of Cloud Finder is the back-end search. And so sure, we back up Office 365 on a schedule. We did, middle of last year, shift to totally focus on Office 365 because we had some features backing up Salesforce and Google. But I know within the MSP space, Office 365 is the most important. So we chose to really focus the resources on that. But yeah, the Finder is the search. It's the back-end pretext search that you can use to help with compliance, find emails that one of your customers might have lost or deleted. That's really one of the neat things about Cloud Finder is the ability to actually use it to find and restore things. And so when we look at the roadmap for Cloud Finder, we're great with email and basically the exchange part of Office 365. Not so great with SharePoint and OneDrive. And so that's what they're focused on is enhancing the SharePoint backup and the OneDrive backup.
Excellent.
But we're totally focused on Office 365, and that's the plan for the time being.
Awesome. Yeah, I think I think we may have a question or two come in with some of those other applications we've addressed in the past. We'll get back to those folks individually. But
and so for people that bought it while those were still valid, I think that we left those features on. But new partners that buy the Office 365 is the only backup.
Gotcha. And yeah, I think it's to your point about really adding value to Office 365 and an insurance policy that they won't get with Microsoft is really key for hopefully our MSPs and our partners' clients.
Yep.
Wonderful. So it sounds like from the suite of solutions, there's a lot planned really on scalability, focusing on that, focusing on kind of cutting down support times and kind of really enhancing the partner experience from that, as well as releasing a little bit more consistent release schedule across the entire suite of solutions, and really focusing on those things that can really provide some results to the partners.
Yeah. Another thing, if we look in the back half, is really looking at ways to bring the suite together more as a suite. And so from a unified portal is something that we're working on now. And then probably late next year or early next year, I'm looking for the team and our partners to come up with ideas of how these products can really work together better. What can we, if someone has an appliance on site, what features we can add from an Anchor standpoint to maybe cache on the appliance. And so we'll look for different areas where the products can work better together actually in the field, and from a usability from an MSP standpoint, having fewer portals to have to log into over time.
Excellent. That's exciting stuff. Very cool. Moving on to, I think it's a really nice transition actually to partner experience. We have a quote here up from our friend Steve Jobs, and it's like, you've got to start with the customer, or in our instance, the partner experience, and work backward toward the technology, not the other way around. Obviously, we've got a mature suite that we just keep enhancing and really focusing on. But how are you looking and addressing partner experience today?
I've always thought of customers and experiencing a business like a customer, especially if you're running an MSP or you're running a software company, it's just really live the life of a customer. It's one of the first things I did here at eFolder is I made a fake MSP name and registered for our products. Looked at how the eval process, what's the sales process, what's the onboarding process.
Okay. And
so I always like to live and walk with our partners and understand how they experience it, and then just be real. And so I've always, you can never fix everything at once. You can never make everything perfect all at once, but I always am really focused on the overall partner experience.
Excellent.
And so from that perspective, from a product, from the portals, we'll always be working to make it easier, smoother, easier to onboard onto new products. There's a couple areas within a software business, so that's more the onboarding and getting up to speed on it. And then there's after you've bought the product, the service.
Mm-hmm.
So there's lots of different areas of service. One of them, which I think is the one that you definitely need to nail and do well at, is support.
Yep.
I don't know when Earl started, but I think 2 months ago we hired Earl Proven. He's someone that I worked with at ConnectWise. He built the original ConnectWise support team, scaled it up to well over 200 people.
Oh, wow.
And so we brought him in to really get into the science of support here
Mm-hmm.
at eFolder, having really good KPIs and making sure we've got really good process, that we're surveying at the right spots.
Nice.
And so, he's really, working a lot to improve the overall partner experience on support. And then we also brought Adam Slutskin, who's this, I worked with him at ConnectWise. He was the CRO at ConnectWise. And so the other side of partner experience, and so you have product, you have your portals, you have your support, and then you have account management and customer service.
Mm-hmm.
So we moved customer service out from operations over right next to account management. And the idea is that the account management team is proactive, reaching out, making sure that our partners know all the great resources that we have at eFolder, that if they have time to take advantage of the different things that we have, like MSP Ignition, that we'll talk about a little
Mm-hmm.
bit later. And then the customer service team is more reactive, making sure that, hey, if you have a billing question, if you have a non-product related, working with the company
Yep.
question or issue, that we're right there on the phone with you to help out there as well.
Okay.
And so we're building out, all the different parts of the business that our partners interface to our company, making each and every spot just a really good experience overall.
Excellent. So it sounds like we've addressed it by bringing in some new leadership, kind of focusing on, to your point, I really like the science behind service. I think we're already seeing some of that internally, and then start spreading out externally here in the near future, if not already. And as we mentioned before, to your point about, all the work that we talked about within the suite of solutions, we're just going to have a downhill effect and really impacting the partner experience by just being better solutions to work with, incorporate into their solution stack, et cetera. Wonderful. You mentioned the support, Adam, and kind of what he's brought to the team. One of the things that the two of you worked on when he joined was really putting in new territories of responsibility for here at eFolder. Any thoughts about kind of how the mindset went into that? You saw this. I mean, it was one of those things where it may have been working in the past, but you brought in a very specific strategy.
Yeah. So I don't know exactly how many territories. I think there's 8 territories across the U.S. and international. And then so each territory has an account manager. And so as you use, for all the different products you use of eFolder, that's your point of contact. Gotcha. And the way we actually work it is the new sales team within that same territory is aligned with the account manager. So there's really a very tight relationship between, we call the territory manager and the account manager. Mm-hmm. And so that as you sign up as a new partner, it's a really smooth process to get over to your account manager. And ideally they'd be sitting right next to each other. But in some situations, they're some of them work from home, so they're not right next to each other. But
and I think one of the other benefits we're hoping from that is really to enhance that community aspect with our team and the partners that we work with, where we have some familiar faces, some familiar voices as we work through our partners' needs. Yeah. So I think that's something that I'm certainly seeing it from the revenue team, and really thinking that it's impacting in the positive ways you were wanting to. So excellent. You had mentioned earlier MSP Ignition. This is something we had teased from a new program perspective. I think we've about a month and a half into this point. There's some news floating around the channel, but can you tell us a little bit about what is MSP Ignition? Yeah,
so the way I look at it, here's the problem that we're working to solve with MSP Ignition is, eFolder has about, we're approaching 4,000 partners, and most of those are MSPs, basically IT professionals doing outsourced IT work for small business. So everybody's solving the same problem. Mm-hmm. And we sit both while we were at ConnectWise and here at eFolder at a perspective where we get to interact with a whole bunch of different businesses. We see ones that are successful. We see ones that maybe are struggling. See some MSPs that are really profitable, some that aren't at all. And so we have a good vantage point to be able to help MSPs that each of them everybody's struggling in one area of their business, or everybody might be focused on trying to fix one area of the business. And so if we can bring together some best practices and around the whole, around running an actual MSP, a profitable MSP business, but then also very specifically targeted around the data protection solution, that we can help MSPs grow, help them be more profitable if they're on eFolder, and then on top of that, use more of the eFolder products. And so, one of the things that we've really seen is the way that you operationalize Replit, Anchor, or Cloud Finder within your business, and the way you sell it, market it, et cetera, can make you more profitable and make it a big size of your overall product portfolio. Because I just have seen some MSPs that are great at it, and some that say, Matt, I don't even know how to sell Anchor. That's where we really struggle with it.
Yeah.
And so this is something, I've been on this journey for a long time, ever since I decided to stop being full-time at Nemsys, is, how do we help, how do we take our vantage point, mine our community for best practices, what people have been really successful with, and then kind of combine that into a superset of best practices that, brings together, great things that all these different MSPs have done. And, Tom Watson is someone I've known for a while. He sold his MSP about 2 years ago. He's the son of 2 lawyers, and so lawyers are important in business. And out there in the world, in the consumer, we might think of lawyers as bad people, but lawyers are really important in business. And so he really built his business smart from a legal standpoint, and he built a profitable business. He used standards. He came from enterprise technology, so he understood the value of standards, and also he was really passionate about helping people grow and build a smart business that's profitable. And so, luckily, he was able to move. He's from the DC area. He moved to Denver. He reports directly into me, the CEO, and that's how important this is to me and to the company. And it's been really successful. We've gotten a lot of good feedback. It's a free program. He's interacting and working with tons of MSPs that have been successful in different areas, and taking those learnings, combining them with actual things like from Nemsys. Since 1999, we've built a contract around our managed service offering, and so we actually gave that away to the MSPs that went to one of his webinars. It's a 50-page agreement where Blake, the CEO of Nemsys, actually worked the quote into that agreement. And it's really slick. It takes into account a lot of the lessons we've learned over the years. So that's an example. He did a pricing calculator, and different ways that MSPs can price their products.
And I think that was actually kind of taking in the cost of the client as well in that calculator, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and the way I look at it, I did this for a while at ConnectWise and LabTech, but this is like a modernized version of MSPs and what people are doing now.
I think that's the key, right? As far as, there's a lot of resources, a lot of books that have been published for many years, and then kind of the IT channel. There's a lot of resources out there, but the way this is going to be different, I think, is the fact that Tom and yourself and all those who are helping drive this program here at eFolder are wanting to make sure it's modern, and that it's the most up-to-date information, the most up-to-date tools, and really provide them, what's applicable here in 2018, and maybe not what was applicable 5, 10, 15 years ago.
And how we know what's important is we ask our partners what's important.
That's right.
Like what in a webinar series, what's a webinar that we could do that would be helpful? What can we do to help deliver you marketing materials that helps you sell your services easier? And so, so we've gotten great feedback. I recommend it, whether you're a partner of eFolder or you haven't bought any of our solutions yet, you're free to join these webinars with Tom, and it's been very helpful.
It's excellent. Yeah, with just a couple of notes on that, we'll make sure to include the registration page for the MSP Ignition program in the follow-up with the video here. But I think it's also good to make sure we call out the Ignition program actually has 2 different tracks, where you mentioned kind of the best practices on the MSPs. We're giving tools like contracts and calculators, etc. There's a second track that is just starting here later this month, I think, with the first episode, where we're talking sales enablement of the MSP and really focusing on, those challenges an MSP has with really selling and growing their business. So whether it's, customer acquisition, finding the right networks, looking into, a myriad of options as it relates to pricing things out and packaging, et cetera. So just a follow-up there, any thoughts on the sales side or?
No, I mean, when I look at the MSP industry, you start an MSP in lots of different ways. I started my MSP when my dad told me that he ran a couple businesses.
Mm-hmm.
He had a Krispy Kreme franchises in Michigan, so he had area development right there.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm just finding this out for the first time, folks. Sorry.
Yeah, North Carolina.
That's right.
I actually was in the Krispy Kreme IPO. It was the only IPO I've ever
nice.
part of. Didn't have a ton of money, but I made a lot of money.
I bet you did.
So anyway, so he had a few businesses, and so his IT guys quit, and he was just asking me for advice. And I had a friend, Drew McCallum, that every Wednesday we went to a brew pub in Toledo, a microbrewery. They had dollar beers on Wednesdays. So Drew and I always met there, and I was talking about how, hey, my dad's two IT people quit, and he said, Matt, we've been talking for a while about how we can go into business together, and so we decided to start Nemesis off of that. So Drew was a little more technical. I was technical, but it was before my MBA, but I'd been exposed to business through my dad. And so we had the benefit of, I was very sales and marketing oriented, Drew was very technical oriented, and so we matched well. But depending on how your MSP starts or where you are in the maturity, how big your company is, there's lots of areas that you may or may not need help. I would say when I look at most MSPs, you need technology to start it.
Absolutely.
If you can't support networks and computers in small business, you're probably not going to start an MSP. And so there is very frequently a hole in sales and marketing. It's hard to get a repeatable demand gen engine going as an MSP. Most people grow their business through referrals. And so that, that's actually one of the things in this series really, putting mechanics behind a referral program or a networking program. How I grew Nemesis, we added about a customer a week at Nemesis, and how I started was just networking. My dad told me when I started, said, Matt, if you're doing lunch or breakfast with either friends or coworkers, you're wasting your time. If you're in sales, you're trying to grow a business. And so what I did is every week I would have 5 breakfasts or lunches with somebody that I would be talking about trying to get referrals from. And so I wouldn't go in and say, hey, give me referrals. I'd say, hey, we're growing a technical company in Toledo, Ohio, and I'd like to get advice from you. And before the end of the meeting, I'd always have 1 or 2, 3 contacts that they had that I should talk to next. And that's how I built it. I just did that, make sure I did 5 a week.
Nice.
And we added 1 customer a week with like a really simple process. So, from a sales and marketing standpoint, there's all kinds of different processes that you can set up, methods, techniques for selling. And so that's what we have that series that we set up.
Excellent. Kind of turn the tips and tricks that we all talk about into a little bit something that has a little bit more of a foundation and can be repeated. Very cool.
Yep. And we'll record all those so people can catch up. But yeah, I recommend if you're a CEO or at all in the sales and marketing spot, if you have sales and marketing professionals within your company, it's free. It's from someone that does this for a job. That's what they do is help salespeople sell better, and so it's Scott. What's his last name?
Kaplan.
Scott
Yeah.
Kaplan.
So just going to put a finer point on that. So in addition to Tom Watson running the MSP Ignition program, on the best practices side, I think you mentioned partners. I think when Tom has the opportunity, he's going to bring partners in to talk with him specifically. So there'll be a lot of guest speakers. And on that same note, on the sales enablement side of the program, Scott Kaplan is one of the colleagues that we work with a lot from our friends at K1 who really focuses on sales enablement. So it brings in a business leader that really complements our MSP experience to kind of bring these two worlds together. And again, I think a lot of value there for anyone in the IT channel that joins that and looking to grow their business. So again, we'll include the link for MSP Ignition in the follow-up email. And just as an FYI, the previous 4 episodes of MSP Ignition are available on the eFolder YouTube channel if anyone wants to go check those out. So just a public service announcement there. That essentially brings us to the end of our formal program. We'll open it up for a little bit of Q&A. I think we've touched on a lot of the things that have come in as we've gone through the program. But if folks out there, if there's any other questions, please, now is a good time.
And so, we do those different webinar series. We do one webinar series a month of the MSP Ignition, at least one, and then we do the once a month sales enablement, and then we're going to start product specific ones. And so there'll be an anchor and a Replicate one is what we're focusing on first, where we get very specific into building out your practice areas that focus on those products.
Okay. We've had a couple of questions come in about the timelines around Anchor and some of the, I think there's a lot of excitement about those granular permissions. I believe you mentioned they're going to start in Q1.
Yeah.
So that's when our partners should keep an eye out for those release notes. And again, the first release won't solve all of those issues, but it will start.
It solves a vast, most people will be fine with the first.
Excellent. Very cool.
So that's definitely happening in Q1.
All right. Well, I think that covers most of the Q&A. If there's any more questions out there, that we'll get back to folks with some very specific follow-up on some topics that have arose. But other than that, Matt, thanks so much for your time today. Things are crazy busy this time of year, but really appreciate it, and I think our audience certainly does as well.
Yeah. Good luck, everybody. Have a great 2018.
Thanks again. Appreciate it, everyone.